I wouldn't even think about this room wasn't built for me or this room wasn't designed for me. No, it is for me. It really is.
It's not a gender, it's just, this is a human thing.
Welcome to Breaking Barriers. I'm your host, Zena Kata, having the honor to sit down with Steve Kerr, head coach of the Golden State Warriors, and Natalie Nakase, the head coach of the Golden State Valkyries. We are going to have a thoughtful conversation in honor of Women's Empowerment Month around leadership, allyship, and resilience. So let's start from the very, very beginning, because interestingly enough, the both of you have started your career right here, starting with the Golden State Enterprise. When did you know, Steve, that you wanted to be a coach and this was the path that you wanted to take?
At an early age, actually, I thought I wanted to coach. My family was basically all academics and teachers, and I never thought I'd play in the NBA. So probably when I was 12 or 13, I just thought, coaching basketball would be pretty cool. But I didn't do it until I was 49 because I ended up playing, and my career kind of surprised me. But I knew I wanted to coach, and once I finished playing, I had young kids. I also knew I didn't want to coach with young kids because I would be gone all the time. So I was very lucky. I got to take my time and do it when it was right for me and my family's life.
It was a little bit different for you, Coach. You went right into it after college. You played a little bit after, and then you made that decision to jump in. What was that decision process like for you?
I didn't want to coach. I didn't know when I was young. I think a lot of my trainers and mentors would say, you're going to be a great coach one day. And I'm like, oh, it sounds terrible. I go, because I wanted to play. Yeah. I think playing was probably the best job you can have in the world. You get to show up. You just get to practice as hard as you can and have fun with your teammates. And so I was like, hopefully I have a long, long career. But then it ended up short, obviously, with the injury. And once I tore my knee up again, I was like, that's it. Kind of a softie, like all these players now have multiple surgeries. But no, I transitioned to coaching right after just because I had an opportunity. So I was playing overseas and a friend of mine was like, hey, we're looking for a head coach in the same division. So I said, why not? This is probably it, right? I was just very fortunate, right time, right place.
Oftentimes, you want to keep your career going as long as possible. You want to make sure that you squeeze the juice out of that opportunity. But there's some things that are undeniable when you're playing, especially when you're a point guard. Right? You're already directing traffic. You're already telling people where to go. Yeah. It felt pretty natural for you to be able to transition into that. Yeah,
it did. And I was lucky to have really good coaches too that allowed me to do that. So Kathy Olivia at UCLA, she would, as we come into the huddle, she's like, what do you see? Mm-hmm. And then so she would just allow me to be really vocal within our timeout and whatever I wanted to call, she was very comfortable on asking me. And so that's kind of actually what I do with Veronica Burton and with Carla Lade and Caitlin Chen. It's like, whatever you guys see, go ahead and, you guys feel it first. You guys are on the court. So I think that trust value within a coach and a point guard dynamic early in my career empowered me to kind of coach then through my lens because I already actually had the experience.
I love the fact that you bring up trust because when you're coming into a coaching position, oftentimes you need that experience. I feel like everyone, right? Your resume, you're trying to put up as much experience that you possibly had. I coached my 5-year-olds, league, little league or something. You're trying to find some sort of way to establish your credibility. Coach Kerr, you're coming in after a playing career, sure. The resume speaks for itself from a playing perspective, but how did you establish credibility to be a leader and a coach in the NBA?
It helped that I was in management with the Phoenix Suns. The 3 years I spent there where I was frankly not a great GM, but I learned so much about organizational dynamics, the importance of alignment with your owner and your GM and your coach and your best player and how everything has to function. And then, like Natalie, I played for a lot of great coaches who gave me, without even trying, a great apprenticeship. Lute Olson, my college coach, Hall of Famer, Phil Jackson, Lenny Wilkins, Greg Popovich. all these guys are,
Just keep name dropping.
No problem.
Yeah,
I played for all those guys. But I find myself, whether it's using drills that I learned from them, using expressions, understanding concepts that I learned when I was a player, it all applies. But once you're the coach, it's all about that presence and respect and communication. And I loved what Natalie just said, collaborating with her players. I do the same thing. When the players come off the floor, they're the ones who are executing the scheme. And so it's way easier to say, what do you guys think? And then open up the discussion and then present your thoughts. In order for you to get a good outcome, you have to engage your team for sure.
It's something I love about the both of you and the style that you guys approach the coaching game and the opportunity to coach amazing talent. It's not about you. It's about platforming them and making sure they have the best opportunity to succeed out there. Coach Nakase, I'm curious, having been in the trenches as a coach, as a head coach, and then being in the NBA and working your way into a head coaching position in WNBA, how did your coaching philosophy change? What did you think you'd be like as a coach, and how has that actually translated?
I didn't know what to think as a coach. I mean, just honestly, again, I had a lot of great mentors, and I think the mentors kind of stayed the same of like, be you. And as much as some people like hate say, because then like, who are you? You do have to figure that out. You do have to self-reflect. You have to kind of dig deep and figure out what are your values, and that's something Steve let me know, a little insight. He gave me tips on, being my first year, what are your core values? He's like, yours might not be the same as mine, and I respect that because I think players really do smell a lot of BS if you try to be somebody you're not. And so that's what I'm really grateful for, is I had really good mentors to kind of lead me and guide me, and honestly that empowers me then to have a lot of confidence in being myself, and that I earned this position by being myself, and I think that goes a long way when you're leading.
Was there a moment where that confidence kind of clicked in where you were like, oh, I can do this. I'm a coach. I can do this.
When I was with the Clippers, I remember I was probably like 5 years in with Doc, and Doc Rivers kind of pulled me aside, and we're on the court practicing. And I always like to stand right next to Doc because then I really felt like, okay, if I could actually do this, I could see from his lens and everything. And I remember something happened within the scrimmage, and he called timeout, and he just like leaned over and said, hey, when you get your team, when you become a head coach, this is what you do. He's like, this tactic always works. And I was like, did he just say, I'm going to be a head coach, And I'm like, did he just say that? And I was still really young. I think I was still doing video, and I couldn't believe like a coach of his caliber and just his experience and everything. And so little words like that, little phrases, really stick to me. And I think that's when I knew like, oh my gosh, like if he believes it, that will help me for sure.
Oh my God, I love that. When people speak life into you and speak life into your dreams and your path for you, even a path that you may not have seen for yourself. That's amazing. What was a moment like that for you, a career moment that kind of changed your perspective on being a coach?
When I decided to coach, I interviewed with the Knicks first, and I don't even think I had interviewed with the Warriors yet, but the word was out that I wanted to coach, and somebody asked Greg Popovich about me potentially coaching. And I'll never forget it. He said, he didn't say it to me, he just said it to the media, but I read it. He said, he could do this in his sleep. And I was like, I don't even know if I can do it awake, but oh my God. But it was the greatest compliment. Like he just, the confidence that he infused in me by saying that. And then he explained why he thought I would be a good coach and the experiences that we shared. It just made me feel so much more confident and so good about my chances. And then I knew I'd be a good coach when I got Steph Curry on my team. I knew I was going to be, I was going to be a great coach. I got Steph, so this is all going to be easy.
But seriously though, especially people like that, Doc Rivers, Greg Popovich, they're not going to waste their breath to say things that they don't mean, right? To be able to speak into you and speak into what you're capable of, that's amazing and that's really special. For you, Coach Nakase, when you think about transitioning from the NBA to the WNBA, what was that like? Who'd you call? Who'd you want to talk to be like, oh God, what am I doing? What am I signing up for?
Oh, who did I call? I think everyone.
That phone was blowing up.
Obviously, I was working for Tulu at the time. He's like, yeah. He's like, go for it. He's very supportive. He knew it was time. Like, I continued to, move forward. Obviously, Becky Hammond. I was with Becky Hammond at the time. Becky had very, very good words too. She's like, what'll it take? And so when Becky said that, I was like,
you are a hot commodity.
Like, hey,
excuse us.
I just, again, someone of her IQ and coaching experience and playing experience and everything, like I was honored to be someone that she felt that she could trust on her staff. Just like you said, there's people that just kind of speak life into you and then just kind of give you that confidence. For me, I knew I could learn from Becky. Again, she came from Greg Popovich, and so the amount of reps that she had and the time that she spent with him, I knew I could learn a lot, and I think that's really what drove me to work for her. And then she just had a big heart. She knew my dad passed that year before, and so she just asked me, like, first, before we start the interview, she goes, how are you doing as a person? Ooh. And I needed that. I needed that at that time, and like I think that really allowed me to get into her space of like I knew I'm going to be okay and learn from her. It was a no-brainer pretty much.
I love this example because it talks about the empathy that you need as a leader. It goes way beyond being able to drop the X's and O's and win the games. And I think that this is something that sometimes gets lost in the conversation about what true leadership is. Especially look at, let's take the Golden State Warriors. Got the banners in the rafters, things are going great. It looks like you guys are winning, got some MVPs going around, but it's leadership beyond the court for you as a coach that allows those players to want to show up and play hard for each other and be able to be successful. For you, what does leadership mean for you beyond the banners, beyond the success that everyone else gets to relish in?
I thought of a lot of people in my life who led me, before I started coaching for the Warriors. So obviously the coaches that I played for, my dad, the people who impacted me the most, and the quality that they all shared was there was a presence that was based on empathy and strength and knowledge, like those things combined. Your players have to know that you know what you're talking about. They also have to know that you're in charge, that you care about them, and that you'll listen to them, and that you don't have all the answers. So there's a mix in there somewhere that I think is the key that I saw with Greg Popovich, I saw with Phil. My dad embodied all those qualities, and I just felt like, this is what players need. They need empathy. They need to know that I know their story. I understand what they're going through. I'm here to help them. And yet I'm in charge. And so I have to lay down the law sometimes. We have to have some rules. We have to have some values. We have to make sure we're all on board with all of this. But the way to keep it going is if you can find the mix with all of that. And then of course you need collaborators on the team. You need guys like Draymond and Steph and players who get it and are competitive and who want to have that type of relationship with you.
Yeah, they want to be an extension of that because you get success from it. This is interesting. The mix of humility, empathy, authority is not an easy balance to find. And I want to ask you, especially as someone that's now finding it as a head coach position, so we're going to learn together, okay? What was that like for you to be able to find that mix over the course of your career?
Just seeing it with Coach Olson in college and seeing that the combination is actually really powerful. And what Natalie was talking about earlier, the values, knowing who you are. I had to go through all of that early in my coaching career. And I told Natalie, Pete Carroll really helped me understand, how to make those values come alive in your practices. And if they're true to your heart, then the players feel that. And there's an authenticity to the culture and to the vibe. I didn't really understand that when I was playing, but I understood it when Pete explained it to me. And then when I saw it come alive here, I think the players felt it and we got something special going, and all of a sudden there was some momentum, and it's like, oh yeah, like Pete was right, and this is kind of how it works. But it has to take hold. There has to be a vibe. Whatever that vibe is, it has to take hold. As a coach, it's your responsibility to make those things come true.
Coach Nakase, I feel like that vibe has already happened with the Valkyries. I mean, this is what the entire WNBA across sports have talked about, how quickly the Valkyries have assimilated, a culture within their team, within, of course, the fan base, but just every single player that came through the program, just through this organization, all said the same thing about loving practice, showing up, feeling like they were empowered to show up as their best selves. How did you establish that so fast? Every time she's like, I don't know, I'm just me.
No, again, you guys heard me in my press conference. Like, I've always admired Golden State from afar. Like, when I was with the Clippers, I'm like, why do you guys win all the time? Like, what is going on there? You guys have so much joy doing it. And I knew that was very hard to find. Or maybe it wasn't. Maybe it really was from, your humility and like what you said, you lead from your heart, your authentic self. And so I think I was trying to observe it from afar, but then when I actually got here and got to speak to Steve, like, he really kind of embedded that into me, is just make sure you lead with your heart and you have these core values, taking a piece of that, as well as, Ohema and Vanya being super intentional about what an expansion team was going to be. We were taking players away from their team, and so we made sure they were high character, they were competitive, they were played kind of and worked with a chip on their shoulder. Those were what we saw in them. And so that's really the piece that we did, is like we found that first. I really didn't do as much as you guys think. It's really the players that we went to go pick. Then you just put them together and then just build their confidence. Like you said, put them in an environment that makes them feel loved, cared about, and build that confidence. And then literally they took the reins of it.
You know, I think
There's a humility right there.
I think the fans can feel it too. And I remember when I went to college, Coach Olson left Iowa, where he had a great team and a sellout every single night. We went to the U of A. I remember asking him, why did you make the move? And he said, Tucson is a basketball crazed town, and we can recruit from LA. All the great players are in California. We can recruit from there, and this town is going to go crazy. And sure enough, like there was this momentum. The Bay Area is basketball nuts.
Yeah.
I felt it every time I would come in as a player, 25 years ago, even when the Warriors, frankly, were not great.
Weren't as good.
Weren't as good.
Yes.
There was a vibe. There was a vibe
Yeah.
in the arena. And so when I took the Warriors job, I knew this crowd is amazing. I went to opening night when Natalie and the Valkyries played. Doc was there. That was really cool. Doc showed up for you and sold out. The vibe was incredible. So you combine a really basketball crazed area with this vibe that the fans can also kind of feel. To me, that's the magic, is that when the fans are invested in the players and the culture and they feel it, it's really pretty cool to see happen.
It's an overarching culture that you're building within. And I love that you mentioned it, as you pulled players from other teams, those players came from other cultures. Right? So you had to create an environment in which they felt comfortable to come in and establish their own level of that. This is fun because the two of you have been able to work kind of closely together, right? You've been able to learn from Steve Kerr, Coach Kerr. I'm sure you've learned from Natalie, of course. What would you say about each other's leadership styles? And I also want to put this before, I'm going to give you guys time to think. One of my favorite memories, Coach Nakase, when you used to come with the Clippers, I used to work for the Warriors. And I would be working, with a client courtside, talking, whatever. And you were so serious about your warm-ups. Okay, you were passing balls out, you were telling guys to go, jab, step, go. And it was very intense. And you took your job very seriously, and I always had a lot of respect for that. And then being able to now see you as a head coach for the Golden State Valkyries, and you take your job just as seriously, but you also bring the joy. And I think that mix and that balance is so important, especially when you're in a leadership position, because it allows players, coaches, whomever, to say, oh, we can have fun while we're doing our jobs and trying to be excellent at that. So that would be my perspective for you. And Coach Kerr, I've seen you also be the same way of just, being able to have a good time with your coaches out on the side, but you are incredibly diligent about your communication, not only to your players, but also to the refs, to whoever else is out on the floor. I see that you take a moment before anything, whether you're talking to your coaches in a huddle, before you get back to the huddle with the players, you always take a second, take a moment to pause. And I appreciate that. And I also love you passing the clipboard. You do that so many times, whether it's your coaches, your players, you're like, what do you see, et cetera, and you see that all the time.
Or breaking my clipboard, depending on my
not as
mood,
often, not as often, sometimes the breath comes and the clipboard breaks, but that's okay. But I see that for the both of you, so I'm curious, how do you all see each other's leadership styles?
You go.
Observing, and now being, that he's invited me into his space and his meetings and practice and everything, and now I get to see it firsthand. And I think there's a thing now with duality, you can be stern and you can get your point across, because I've seen him very mad. I've seen the clipboard break. I've been watching him for a really long time. But I also see when, not to say too much, but within your practice, everyone is so comfortable. And they feel so secure, and they're very confident. And it's an energy that when I remember coming into that space first time, you could just feel it. No one was on edge. No one's what's gonna happen, there's this really family feel environment. And I was like, wow, I strive for that. That's what I really, really want. And it starts with Steve, and you could just tell, what you said earlier, you know them in and out. You know them more than just a basketball player. Their families and what they do off the court. And I think that really, really allows him to lead however he wants to. He can go hard, or he could, just be normal in a normal voice, So yeah, that's what I've really kind of learned.
I love that. Very poised, and I agree with that. Very poised, very family-like. What about you, Steve? What do you see?
Well, I see your poise every game. You never seem to get too upset, but I can see how competitive you are. I can see it in your eyes that you might be incredibly angry at a call or but you always manage to stay poised. But I think the vibe, the authenticity of the vibe with your team is apparent, and you're very comfortable in your own skin. I was worried about the expansion part of this when you started last year. Natalie came to our practices the last couple months of, before their training camp, you were coming in, and I was really worried about what the expansion stuff would look like and what it would feel like to lose. And then you guys go ahead and make the playoffs in the first year, and it's like, oh, okay, I guess I shouldn't worry too much. But I came to 4 or 5 games. It just seemed so natural for you. And I think the players really appreciate that. I think they need poise and stability, and you provide that, but there's an underlying competitiveness, which is a must. And I can see that in you, and I love that.
Both of you are very steady. I think there's also a level of vulnerability in your leadership as well that I think is really important. Let's shift the conversation to, it is Women's Empowerment Month, and we know that there are so many glass ceilings being broken all across women's sports right now, and it's fire. We love it, we love it. There's still more rooms to get into, there's still more ceilings to be cracked and then eventually broken. But thinking about, I'll start with you, Coach Nakase, about gender dynamics, right? Working in the NBA at one point, working with a male-dominated staff. When did you realize that the gender dynamics were different?
Different in terms of, are you saying, how are you asking this?
However you experienced that, right? Like, I think sometimes the automatic assumption about gender dynamics is that women are treated poorly, right? Or that women are excluded in some way. And sometimes it's not as black and white as that. Sometimes it's just a matter of like, oh, I can't go into that room because I'm literally a woman. Like that doesn't make sense for me to go there. Gender dynamics just being different in your experience of, okay, it might take me a different route or a different path or a slight change in the way that I approach work every day in order for me to show up in this space.
Yeah, I guess to be very transparent, I just didn't think about it. I grew up hooping. I grew up, playing pickup outside with the guys majority of the time. And so for me, it was a natural thing. And when I got hired, Vinny Del Negro actually hired me. He never even looked at me as a female. I was a head coach coming from men's Japan League, from international ball. And then so for him to be like, hey, you want to be my video coordinator at 31 years old? And he was kind of like, yeah, why not? He's like, this is what you want to do? I'm like, hell yeah, I want to do this, I want to learn from the best, and I want to be a part of the best league, one of the best leagues in the world. So for me, it was a no-brainer, and I think from the way Vinny hired me was like, you got the job, you look, really invested and committed and dedicated, and I think that really is why I don't overthink the gender. Yeah. I just I follow my passion, I'm committed to my job, I try to do it the best of my ability, bring positivity, bring joy, and I just focus on the things that I feel like is supposed to be my role at that time and help the players with whatever they need. And I think when you focus on that, I think that kind of eliminates all the outside noise, because it's funny, you guys always ask me these questions, but it's not what you think once I'm on the court, today, we're just talking hoop, and it's actually that simple. If we could, I think, change the narrative of how we're addressing this. I think we have to change it in more of a positive light rather than put onus on gender,
Sure. I think it's really cool to see that there are kids now, young boys, that have female coaches, and there's not a question. That's not an issue. That's not a, what's going on here? So I think that I absolutely agree with you on that. That being said, there are rooms I walk in now, I'm sure rooms that you've walked into, where they weren't built for women in the sense of the people in the room are majority male. How do you feel confident walking into those rooms? What would you say to a woman to get to the point where you're at right now, where you're like, this isn't a thing. This isn't a thing that I think about. I just talk hoops. What would you say to young women that are wanting to walk into those rooms that on the surface may not look like it's made for them, but you should feel comfortable walking in?
I mean, I guess I'm just really confident in what my craft is and what my passion is. And again, I wouldn't even think about this room wasn't built for me or this room wasn't designed for me. No, it is for me. It really is. I think when opportunity knocks, I think you just have to be prepared for it. You have to work diligently at your craft. And I also want to change kind of the narrative of hey, because you're a female, do you feel like you have to be at your best? And do you feel like you have to work 10 times harder? No, that's just how I am built. My dad built in me you better work your You have to be the hardest worker, that no matter what, you want to strive to be the best. And so I think I was just very lucky to have a dad that, drove those type of the mindset that I have. And then so however I could maybe continue to help other women with that, I am completely on board, because I think I did have a very iconic dad that really pushed me to believe in myself at any cost.
Yeah. And I love that you're saying helping women and get on board and be in those rooms as well. Because, not everyone has that ability to walk into rooms and realize it's for me, right? And some people do need that push. They need to have people speak life into them. Coach Kerr, over the course of your career, how have you worked to try and build rooms where everyone feels comfortable, bringing in underrepresented voices, bringing in women, bringing in whomever hasn't necessarily felt represented before?
I think over the course of my 12 years here, we've seen just a dramatic change in terms of the number of women in high-profile jobs around the league. We've had a video coordinator, 6-7 years ago. That was our first basketball ops, or at least coaching staff hire.
Sure.
A couple of years after that, our head trainer was a woman. We now have our analytics head within basketball, a woman named Hannah Herring. I remember when you first came into the room with us watching film, there's 12 guys, and there's Hannah and there's Natalie, and it's just two women. So this scene that you're describing is very common, right? So even with this influx of women into the men's game, it's still generally one or two, and then a lot of guys. So there's still a vibe that the women who come in have to feel. What I've found is that the really smart women are exactly like the really smart men. You come into a room, you're new, you observe, you listen, and you kind of understand, I'm gonna speak when I'm ready to speak. I'm gonna take all this in, I'm gonna show the proper respect, and it's not a gender thing.
Yeah.
It's not a gender, it's just, this is a human thing. I wanna learn, and I'm gonna come in here, and I'm learning from a group that's already been together. Natalie didn't really say anything until we asked her about stuff, and I really respected that. I really appreciated that. And I can tell you that from a lot of the men who've come in, the guys who instantly come in and start chirping, I'm like, maybe. So I just think
take a second.
Yeah, I just think it's really a human thing more than it's a male or female thing. But there's no question it's harder for a woman to walk into a room like that and feel comfortable. But I'm glad that we're breaking down some walls and that women are feeling more and more comfortable in a lot of different areas organizationally.
I'm so happy you mentioned not just a lot of different areas, not only just in Golden State Enterprises, but in the Bay, right?
Yeah.
Rugby's coming, baseball's coming, League One volleyball.
Volleyball.
There's so much coming to the Bay in terms of women, and the future is female is real here in the Bay. How do you intentionally ensure that the women that are coming, the fans of those women that are coming, feel included and feel like they're part of that growth and that they can be part of the platforming of these female athletes? I
think connecting with them, showing up for sure and supporting, maybe even reaching out. Again, when I reached out to Steve I'm sitting in meetings, and it was a no-brainer. Also the way he invited and the way I felt too. That also, it helps. It's not just okay, yeah, you can come. No, he was
intentional.
Whenever. Yeah, it's intentional, and I could feel him saying yes, whatever you need, my staff, and so that's why I've been changing my staff every time you've been seeing two new people, because they all would love, to learn. And again, it's the energy, it's the feel that I'm getting from Steve. So more people like Steve, I think, is important.
But a lot of this felt naturally because you already knew some of our staff members. You've literally worked with some of our staff members in different clinics and camps and stuff, and so there's such a natural vibe. And I just think it's like everything else. It's you chip away at this stuff. Every new hire, every person that comes in, every woman who comes into the male world of the NBA, it just normalizes everything. And so I don't know that there's one, sort of breakthrough person or moment. It's just, this is how society works. And eventually it just becomes normal, and that's how it should be, because it should just be a human thing, not a gender thing.
I feel like not all organizations are as symbiotic as we've seen Golden State Valkyries and Golden State Warriors be, and really all of their platforms. What would you say to other organizations that are trying to break that barrier, that are trying to maybe bring, if they have multiple properties within their organization and their women's team or their men's team, they're not quite as connected as you all would be? What would be some tips that you would offer?
I think everything that we've discussed, normalizing relationships, and it helps that we both play at Chase and we see each other at games and that we're around each other. And yeah, it's not something you can force, but when you have a lot of good people who just want to connect and work together, it sort of happens on its own.
Mm-hmm. Coach Nakase, I haven't had that chance. We've been mentioning mentors throughout this. I want to just talk a little bit about the future. Of course, everyone is very excited about next season with the Valkyries. There's some work that has to be done before that can happen, of course, but thinking about next season for the Valkyries and as you go towards continuing this path towards the 5-year timeline that's been set for a championship. What has it been?
Yeah,
no pressure. Thanks. What has it been like for you to get that support from Steve and his staff? Like, what have you been excited about implementing going into next season that you've been able to learn in this last offseason?
I can't give away our
Maybe not. Yes, maybe not the X's and O's, but anything in terms of like themes or mindsets that you've been appreciating.
I guess the mindset, I think, for me was my first year. Again, I didn't really know, what to expect and this and that, of how dangerous we could be as the season went on. So now I think I have a better picture of how I can navigate the whole season. Even my training camp was pretty brutal. So maybe, just be more thoughtful, I think, throughout the longevity of a season. Health, to me, is always a priority. And so I watched that too with Steve and his staff and I asked a bunch of questions like, how do you navigate that? It's a science, it's an art form really. So yeah, I'm just trying to, there's a couple of things, but I'm just not at the moment right now to share. I just wanted to be honest. But yeah, we're preparing, I'll say that, we're preparing for it, yeah.
Let's close this out, okay? Women's Empowerment Month. We want to have real conversations about real growth for women. Right? We don't want to just be happy-go-lucky, like, yay, women. Like, it's got to be about real growth and pushing the needle forward. What's a barrier or frontier that you would like to see in the world of basketball, in the world of sports in general, particularly in the Bay with all these women's teams coming to the Bay? What's the next frontier you'd like to see women cross? And maybe it's even the next generation.
That's a great question. Yeah. It's a hard one, because I've heard people say, well, we got to get to the point where a woman can coach an NBA team. And I think about that and I'm like, is that the barrier that we need, or is that even important? I think the biggest thing for me is that women's sports are providing so many opportunities for young girls, like going to the Valkyries games and seeing all the young girls in Valkyries jerseys jumping around, having fun, right? The fact that women's basketball has taken off, I think the next step is, Can these other leagues, women's softball, women's volleyball, can there be multiple women's pro leagues that are really thriving with great fan bases? To me, that maybe that's the barrier. I don't know that it's like you have to cross the gender line and this person has to coach. It's more just like, are we inspiring a group of young women and giving them as many opportunities as we're giving the young men out there?
I love that. I love that.
I agree. I think the totality of women's sports is like, how can we continue to increase viewership? How can we increase, salaries? Just everything that, like he said, is like, let's be able to sustain it. Let's be able to push forward. I mean, I just went to the Super Bowl and I'm like, this is 70,000 fans. And so I asked Jess, like, how can we get 70,000 fans? Like, can we play here?
Yes,
you know what I mean?
right.
At the Levi Stadium, like, hey, can we get a game here? So maybe I can, speak that into, manifest it. But like, why not?
It's like Nebraska volleyball.
Yeah. Nebraska volleyball.
Yes,
they
exactly.
filled out that whole
Caitlin
stadium,
Clark,
yeah.
she did that at Iowa. So those are things sometimes that I envision. I just love the fact that all these people were either, for two teams or whatever, but can women's sports be a $70,000? Now we don't have one game. That's the thing, the tricky thing is we don't have one game. But I know Jess Smith, and she gets things done. So I'm just gonna.
I never doubt Jess Smith.
Yeah,
Agreed.
exactly.
Yeah, I'm hearing women's empowerment needs accessibility, it needs sustainability, it needs expansion. And this has been a really wonderful conversation. I appreciate you guys sitting down, talking to us a little bit about leadership and allyship that you've provided for both of each other, and of course, how women can be resilient in these spaces. So thank you both.
Thank you.